Good morning. My name is Joe Neiman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ACV Auctions. ACV Auctions is a mobile marketplace that's aimed at disrupting the used car auction industry. So my experience with used cars started when I was 15 years old, actually way before that, but that's when I was old enough to buy and sell my first car for a profit out of my parents' driveway. And that continued all through high school, all through college, and when I graduated from the University of Buffalo, that was my first move, was I went to go work for myself legitimately and start a used car dealership. So I grew that business right out of college from a 2-bay garage up to a 13,000 square foot facility, 13 employees. We sold 550 cars a year and $5 million in annual sales. So I know the business intimately. I'm super passionate about it. I've also done some consulting work with new car dealerships, so I see their side of the business, and I'm the industry guy.
My name is Dan Magnuszewski. I'm the co-founder and CTO of ACV Auctions. I'm from here in Buffalo. I graduated from the University of Buffalo with a degree in computer science. And after graduating, my whole career is centered around taking ideas and being able to turn them into products and into businesses. My father owns a used car dealership, so growing up, I've been very familiar with the auctions, the problems with being a used car dealer. So when Joe and I started talking, it really resonated with me and was something that I gravitated to instantly.
So Jack Greco, who's also on the screen there, can't be on stage with us, but he's our CFO. Jack has been in venture capital for 10 years, and he also has been instrumental in the start of 50 different startups, getting them up and off the ground. He's truly passionate about new business creation. That's the rest of our team: auto industry experts, developers, designers, and operations. So the used car dealer-to-dealer marketplace is 24 million cars sold every year, and most people, consumers, don't even realize that it exists. It's actually like the second largest financial and asset exchange in the US. The process to get a car through to an auction and sold at an auction is it's ridiculous, and I'm going to walk you through it. It's time-consuming, it's extremely aggravating, and very costly. So typically it begins with a car coming in on trade at a new car dealership. A manager will then guess to the best of his ability on the value of that car. If they can negotiate and make a deal, they then have the car in their inventory. Now the clock starts ticking, and the time starts adding up against that car. So the car has to get cleaned and prepped for auction, transported to auction, and then it arrives at an auction where it has to sit. Physical auctions, which is our competition, run 1 day per week. So they wait for all these cars to pile up, and then they'll try and sell like 1,000 or 2,000 cars over the course of a couple hours. It's a zoo. The reality is that about 50% of the cars sell, so there's an extremely high likelihood, in addition to the high cost just to even get the car there and to possibly transact on it.
And this is why we've created ACV Auctions. We are connecting the sellers and the buyers directly through live 20-minute long auctions. And the beautiful thing is we do it at 1/3 of the cost that they're used to paying. So let's take a look at how easy it is to sell a car on ACV Auctions. Within our app, the seller will go through, scan the VIN barcode, which is on every vehicle. It'll pull all the vehicle information in. From there, our app walks you through the photo taking process, making sure you have the right types of photos and the right number of photos for the buyers. At that point, you go through the condition report, you'll write up an overview of the vehicle, and in only 5 minutes, you're now ready to send that vehicle to auction. Let's look at how easy it is to buy a car on ACV Auctions. Our buyers in the network, once that's sent to that auction is sent live, they'll receive a push notification on their phone. By clicking on that, it'll bring them directly into our app and right to that auction. Here they'll be able to view the photos, read through the condition reports, and interactively bid during that 20-minute auction. At that point, the seller can determine whether that value is high enough at the end of the auction. And if they accept it and the auction is successful, we have a completely automated back-end process handling payments and title transfer.
I opened this up talking about the challenges that the new car dealer faces to offload their used car inventory at these auctions. What I didn't talk about, and I will now, is just how hard it is to be a used car dealer to acquire this inventory. So it's also time-consuming and expensive and aggravating as a used car dealer. When I was a used car dealer, I'd spend 3 or 4 days a week away from my dealership, where I had my employees and my main operation, chasing these cars all over the Northeast, going to physical auctions in different states just to get enough inventory. What ACV does is it fundamentally turns the tables, and instead of the buyers having to go chase this inventory, we direct it right to them in real time. So again, total market size for the US, there's 24 million cars selling this way in the US every year. Buffalo, which is where we started our business, represents 50,000 cars. So we started 4 months ago from 0, and we've grown month over month with how many cars have transacted in the Buffalo market on our system. In our 4th month, basically 200 cars represents 5% of the Buffalo market transacting across ACV auctions. So we anticipate a similar growth curve going forward. So what does this look like? To date, in 4 months, we've sold 650 vehicles across the ACV Auctions mobile platform. We've successfully transacted $3 million worth of inventory, and we've generated a gross profit of $150,000 so far. Buffalo helped us define what a new market looks like for us. So 35 buyers, 35 sellers and 250 buyers creates enough liquidity for us to have a viable marketplace. Again, that's going to have a total available market of 50,000 cars. We generate $330 of fee revenue per sold car, which makes a total available market of $16.5 million. Doing just 5% of that, which we've already achieved in our 4th month, the Buffalo market annualized revenue was $825,000. So a new market for us costs about $20,000 to enter. We can go into that from 0 and get it up and operational to a capacity where it's doing sufficient volume in 5 months and where we're exceeding break even. So a total market to enter is $100,000. With a $1 million investment, our plan is to enter 10 new markets, putting us in front of 500,000 potential vehicles. That brings our total market size up to $165 million. Doing only 5% of that, so ratcheting that all the way back to what we've already achieved here in Buffalo, we're talking about transacting 25,000 cars and generating $8.25 million worth of revenue. Extrapolating that out over the entire US, we're looking at about 480 total markets and about $400 million in annual revenue.
So we've proven that this works, and now it's time for us to scale it. We have already created 10 jobs here in Buffalo, and as we grow it and scale it out, we're going to be creating more jobs here. This investment will directly correlate to the number of jobs that we create here in Buffalo. Our goal is to make Buffalo, New York, the auction capital of the world. Thank you.
Wow. Good work.
Thank you.
Okay, Sandy, we're going to let you go first this time.
Well, I just did this. I just traded in my car and bought a new car and all of that, and actually it went okay. But in terms of scale, and I really like that you started speaking to that, when you think about scaling beyond the 10 new markets that you have planned for 2016, what is it going to take? Do you need to, or do you have your eyes on a partnership with key players? Can you talk a little bit about what it's really going to take for you to scale?
Certainly, I'd love to. So the nice thing is there's been a lot of companies in the dealer services space that have kind of blazed this trail for us. With the internet coming around 15 years ago into the automotive space, companies like AutoTrader and Cars.com went out and converted all these dealers, brought them on, and really sold them on the idea of doing things on the internet. So our buyer base is more comfortable, our user base is more comfortable with these concepts every day. We do have some really strong strategic partners. Next Gear Capital is the country's largest floor plan provider for used car dealerships. So what that means is they extend credit lines to used car dealers so they can buy inventory. So hundreds of thousands of dollars available really per user. They've opened their customer list to us, and actually their reps on the ground that interact with their dealers on a daily basis are talking up ACV Auctions. So they've got 18,000 buyers that are already becoming aware of ACV.
And just in Buffalo, in our first month, we increased their regional sales reps volume by 40%. So they love us. They love what we can do getting their buyers to buy from auctions that they weren't normally buying at, or buying vehicles they never would have seen before.
And our data supplier as well that powers our app from a standpoint of what databases we hit for vehicle information, it's a company called Black Book, which is owned by Hearst Media. So Black Book is like the business side of Kelley Blue Book, if you were to compare them.
And Hearst Media has said that we have contacts there that they'll reach us out if we want to get into Houston or wherever as we start going west.
So is there, as you have these relationships, are there any opportunities for exclusivity in there? Because that, I mean, from a competitive advantage standpoint, that's going to be tough for you, to prevent somebody from just coming in and copying some of this.
Yeah, and that's why the partnerships were so important early on. We had these partnerships before we had even launched, and they loved it, and they got it. So yeah, we've been in talks on what that looks like. What does exclusive mean? What type of data are we giving up? That's stuff that we're working through, and obviously, if we can get exclusivity on it, that'd be perfect.
So these marketplaces are typically network effect businesses that winner takes most. So the exclusivity comes from just being the biggest and having the most liquidity. And I think that's one of the things you think about is like, is 500,000 a million enough, or do you raise 5 and go for it, right?
Yep.
So a clarification, because I've never bought or sold a used car. I thought that the way car dealerships worked was you got a bunch of people who sell a car into a particular local dealership. They post all their inventory on some database somewhere for the 15 car dealerships in a particular region. And those people then know what inventory is available. So if somebody like me comes in and says, I want a newish 3 Series BMW, they look up their list and they see what's there. But what you're describing, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's, there are some what I would call online classified wholesale dealer-to-dealer sites. The problem with those sites is there's no sense of urgency, there's no call to action, and the physical auction is the total opposite. You basically bunch up all these guys that need inventory, and you just create this like mass market 1 day a week, and it's like a circus. It's also extremely inefficient, but it's like an event. That's the way that the majority of the cars are transacted.
And these are generic, so it's not like you go in with saying, I need 15 BMWs, I need 5 Explorers.
You can't do that.
It's generic. I buy a whole bunch of
you have
autos
no
or trucks.
control over the inventory that you're going to walk into. You might be able to see it on a pre-sale list, but I would go to auctions where there'd be 3,000 cars, and there's everything from $200 cars to $50,000 cars and everything in between, and you run around like a chicken with your head cut off to try and buy what you want.
Do you still have your dealership?
I do.
And is your dad still?
He's still active, yeah.
And how much of the transactions in Buffalo have come from that ecosystem of those 2 locations, which I would assume is a good amount since you're starting off?
So I don't have my big operation anymore. I completely scaled that down. I maintain my dealer license just because once you have it, it's a hard thing to give up. I've probably bought 3 cars off of the system.
I think the thing that is a little concerning for me, and I'd love for you to answer it, is you're making a lot of projections all based on Buffalo in a world that you have completely vigged of all the years of experience. So that has to be disproportionately the place where you can pull in, whether you have your places or not, the favors. I mean, your dad's probably known some of these people for 30 years. So you've got leverage.
So my dealership was not in Buffalo. I'm from Albany, which is 300 miles away.
Got it.
So I walked into Albany, or I'm sorry, I came to Buffalo a year ago, really not knowing anyone. I went to University of Buffalo, but I didn't have like connects in the auto industry in Buffalo. And
my dad runs a small used car dealership, so he may know of people. He's not buying and selling. He's not a new car dealer. So, and the more you learn about the new car and used car business, all they care about is can they make more money and how can they get their inventory. Sure. There is no, oh, you're a startup from Buffalo. That's great. We'll help you with your app.
Gets us nowhere.
Money.
And in reality, we have to project that we're bigger than we are just due to that. But we look at Buffalo being really interesting because we use a lot of salt on the roads and a lot of snow, and
these are like
watch my
less
mouth, but-
desirable
And just
cars
for-
in
And just
general.
for clarity, is this other dealerships throwing up inventory that's not moving? Is it B2B, or is this like literally people's cars are the inventory?
It's all B2B.
All.
So it's cars that they own, that they take in on trade, and they resell to other dealers. Because
Yep.
if you trade in a car with 150,000 miles, it might still have a lot of life in it, But if you're a new car dealership, you're not going to be the one to retail that car.
Well,
but there are people that will.
And similar to your question before, when you go and trade in a vehicle, if you're going to a Mercedes dealership and you have a Chevy Cruze, they're not selling that Chevy Cruze through the Mercedes dealership. It's one of those things that they just, this doesn't fit into what we do for used cars, make it go away, and we just want to break even on it. We want to make that new car sale. That's where we make our money. We're going to run you through the shop and give you the warranty and do all this other stuff. We just want this other car gone, unless it's a newer, higher end.
But what I don't get is, in this age where there's so much data, there's so much personalization, right? You can get it down to this person wants this type of car with this type of radio, almost. Why are cars bought and sold on a generic basis, on a vanilla basis?
Not sure I totally understand your question.
Well,
So you just said, you go into, a car dealer will go into these auctions and buy whatever it is, 25 cars.
Yeah.
And they'll just be looking for a good deal. They'll not be looking for specific models, specific inventory
Dealers are experts in their niche. So a Mercedes dealer is going to be an expert in high-end cars. They're not, and they're also not marketing toward teenagers or college students or anybody that's buying a Chevy Cruze. For the same reason that when I had my dealership, I sold probably 1,000 cars on eBay. So I specifically looked for cars that had what I call eyeball, like trucks that had a little lift kit to them, or Jeep Wranglers, or fancy sports cars, stuff that I knew would turn. I wouldn't buy Ford Tauruses, because if I put that on, no one's looking there. So could I try and appeal to every single buyer out there? Of course, but you're much better off running a business knowing your niche.
Right.
And I think that's where most of our dealers operate.
And it's more generics too. We buy domestics that are between 8 to 10 years, anywhere 30 to 70,000 miles, and we know that'll sell because there is no continuous supply. So if it's a little high in the mileage, but you haven't seen one of these in green in a year, I might as well get that because I know I have buyers for that.
So your system, where you are pushing notifications out to your membership, do you push them based on certain criteria? Do people customize their, alert list, saying, okay, hey, listen, tell me if there's a Mercedes up, or tell me if there's a, Jeep Wrangler with whatever.
Right.
So what we are doing. Oh.
Like, you're thinking about it from the way I started thinking about it from the demand side of the equation, right? Like, people who want cars, what they're saying is that this is a supply innovation. So they're figuring out the supply side of the business because the demand kind of takes care of itself. If you know how to buy and get access, and it resonates with me because I'm involved with a sneaker business that took, Sneaker Con, all these events, you go in and there are kids selling sneakers to each other. It's a frenzy, and they're doing it through a mobile app called Slang. And they innovated on the supply side because there's such huge demand for these sneakers, right?
I'd like to think we're doing both because we do have that search criteria.
Demand happens once you have the supply.
100%.
It's already happening.
Right.
So if you figure out the supply, everything else
How many
takes over.
auctions are happening a week across the country? Or
How many physical
physical
auctions?
auctions?
How many
physical auctions are
facilities
going
are there?
on?
There's like probably 250,
How many actual auctions are going on a week or a month in the U.S.?
5 days a week. So, and if you had 250 of them, so what's that? 50 auctions a week? I mean, it's a huge,
Yeah, it's huge.
huge marketplace.
Yep.
Yep.